order.
Gotcha.
Not all of it.
Hi, Sheila. When last we met.
I know. Some of it did last. Not all of it. And then, oh, well, we can talk about that later.
Doesn't matter. Crux of the story is it's not here.
So how's your family doing?
We don't have to
Good.
look at it. We can make, I can cross my arms.
How'd you go?
Well, I think on some
Yeah.
of it, it's gonna get to the point that if it doesn't come in, we're gonna have to make the decision, do we just wait for something else, because
That's what we were
it's
there last
taking
week.
so
See, and I
long.
normally go more weeks.
Really? Hey. It was
killing me.
nice. We were a little worried the weather was gonna be really bad, but
All right, let's do
it
it.
was fine.
Did I send that to
One day.
you and Dr. Wright?
Wednesday of last week, I got
Yes.
the aftermath of some
I got it.
accident.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there and I'm seeing trees,
Got it, yeah.
Spanish
Yep, we
moss
got it.
doing like this.
Itchy Jeff.
And so, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, when you're in that scenery, it's okay, right? If it
Wait.
rains, it's,
wake up, go sit out on the patio and see the alligators just sitting there.
yeah.
But no one should.
Yeah.
Not really glad. You good, Keith?
Do you want opinions?
We're gonna start. Not getting cool either, but I'd like to welcome everyone to the Wednesday, July 14th, 2021 work session of the Richmond Community Schools Board of Trustees. If we'd please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we could have the reading of our mission and vision statement.
Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
The vision statement of Richmond Community Schools is a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you both. Any public commentary? No public commentary. Would like to have a script for the return.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on the return to in-person learning plan? All right, seeing none, we'll move on.
Thank you for the save. And moving on to consent items.
Good evening, Board President, members of the board, Cabinet. I come this evening to ask for approval of consent items 3.01, the minutes, 3.02, human resource report, and 3.03, the wire transfer. And in addition to the 3.02 human resources request for approval, we also are requesting the addendum to the 3.02 human resources report.
Mr. President, I move to approve the consent items as presented with the addendum.
I'll second.
Motion by Aaron Stevens, second by Jeff Slifer. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to action items.
Board President, members of the board, Cabinet, I ask that for action item 4.01, the Exceptional Education Services Agreement, that Mrs. Sheila Hobbs join us to present the action item.
Good evening. Tonight I'm bringing to you 3 recommendations, one for occupational therapist, our registered occupational therapist, one for our orientation and mobility specialist, and the final one for school psychologist services. Those are outlined in the memo to you, and I'm just asking for your approval of those 3 required special ed positions.
I move the approval of 4.01, the Exceptional Education Services Agreement.
I'll second.
Motion by Aaron Stevens, second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. You got it. And 4.02?
For 4.02, we ask that Mrs. Hobbs, while still in attendance, present the mental health agreement.
Tonight I bring to you the request for advertise for proposals for mental health was approved back on May 26th. We properly advertised and received those proposals on June 16th. 2 proposals were received, one from Centerstone, who is our current mental health provider, and the second was an online therapy service called the Stepping Stones Group. That service provided, I do have a rubric that I used when I do these. They were not able to give us local people. They had one applicant in our area that they had looked at to even consider at a master level, and hadn't even considered like the people who are in the buildings on a day-to-day basis. So those what Centerstone calls family support specialists. So at this time, I would like to recommend that we award that proposal to Centerstone on the following basis. They will provide master level therapists in our buildings and make them available to our students. Having those master level therapists, they provide direct services on site as well as do the intakes in the building and do not require students to go on site for Centerstone. They're currently trained and engaged with our work in social emotional learning, as well as positive behavior supports, as well as response to intervention. Maintaining our mental health provider as Centerstone will have that smooth structure and transition. With that, we also have the additions of 3 additional through pending Title I grants, ESSER grants, and I believe Title IV maybe. So we have some CYS specific additional services at the rate of $15,000. We have embedded family support specialists at our 2 intermediate schools at the addition of $50,000. And embedded supports this year will be new at Hibbard, and that will be at $40,000. So the total is $76,000 for the general package, and then we have those 3 add-ons based off of, and those are all pending grant approvals.
The 76,000 is not pending grant approval.
Correct. That's general fund.
I move that we accept this mental health agreement as proposed.
I
Motion by
second.
Nicole Stoltz,
I second.
second by Kristen Brenton. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
Thanks.
Board of Trustees for action item 4.03, the Schmeckens Education Solution Contract there at Fairview Elementary. I ask that Director of Elementary Education, Mrs. Don Sonsini, present to the board for such action item.
Thank you. Good evening. It is recommended that the Board of School Trustees accept the contract for Fairview Elementary School from Schmeckens Education Solutions to continue writing professional development as presented for the fall 2021 semester. iLearn Spring 2021 data indicates this is an area of continued weakness. Schmeckens began work at Fairview in the spring 2021 semester. Goals have been identified in Fairview's school improvement plan to develop strategies to teach and assess writing. Additional time for teacher professional development is needed to focus on the writing workshop model, mini lessons, and assessments using 6 traits. Schmeckens will provide training and modeling of effective writing lessons in 3 visits throughout the school year. This training will be funded using Fairview's School Improvement Grant for 2021. I also wanted to provide some data, as Mr. Slifer at our last meeting wanted to make sure that we were monitoring growth. And so Mrs. Service provided percentages of growth from beginning of the year to end of the year on writing assessments. So kindergarten showed an 84% increase in their writing on the spring assessment. First grade, a 93% improvement. Second grade, a 69% improvement. Third grade, an 88% improvement. And fourth grade, an 84% improvement. So we will continue to grow those scores, but I wanted to provide that information as we are seeing growth, and we do credit the work that the teachers are doing and the coaching through Smeckens.
Thank you.
I'd like to move that we accept this contract.
Motion by Nicole Stoltz,
Second.
second by Aaron Stevens. Any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Dr. Wright.
Board of Trustees, for action item 4.04, I ask that our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Jennifer O'Brien, present action item regarding book fees.
Good evening. Tonight I recommend the board approve the following attached textbook fees for the 21-22 school year. The previous fees are also there for your reference. New fees have been established for social studies and for foreign language textbook adoption, as well as some additional classes that were added at the high school. You'll note that there is a decrease in some grade levels, but also an increase, especially at the second through fourth grade levels, and that's due to the social studies adoption. So at this time, I ask for the board to approve textbook fees for the 21-22 school year.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Jeff Slifer,
I'll second.
second by Keith Morey. Any questions or comments? Sir.
I remember having this conversation a year ago. Just for the reason we have everybody enroll is because we get reimbursed some amount. Oh, right? I mean, sorry, not enroll. During enrollment, we ask everyone to fill out set forms so that if they meet the financial requirements, we get some percentage reimbursed.
It's not a percentage, it's a state calculated rate based on
Okay.
who applies and how much money is set aside in the state budget.
Okay.
And that's determined on an annual basis. So we don't necessarily know from year to year how much that will be, but they provide us with annual reports. We get a preliminary report in June as we are building our next year's budget, and then we get final information later in the year, so November, December.
Like what ballpark percentage does that cover?
Depends on the year. So I would love to be able to tell you it's the same all the time, but what we see is if your fees are higher, sometimes it's a less percentage. If there's less budgetary money available, or there are more schools participating in the program, if your economic development, social aspect of your community is higher in the need, then that will sometimes drive down the totals that are per student provided, because you have more students participating. And that's a statewide number. So the per student amount is for every district across the state. It's just how much of your cost do you get funded changes based on that.
Does it typically cover half, 75? I mean,
They don't do it like that. So because at your secondary levels, everything is by course, you can't generalize it by percentage, because at elementary, it might be you get 90%, but at high school, you might get 10% if you were to do it per student cost. But they don't look at that. It's the total cost for the district. So when you fill out the application, it's by grade level, by the costs that you have, and how many students qualify, and then they run grand totals. So it's not quite as easy as just saying it's a percentage.
right. I just didn't know if there was, I don't know, sort of.
Well, but I think
No,
there's,
it's usually somewhere between, the actual money the revenue that we bring in is usually anywhere from $100,000 to $280,000, depending on the state participation.
And what would the total, like, let's say everybody paid all of their book fees, what's that total amount going to be? I mean,
I don't have that number with me.
yeah,
I have
don't.
it. I
Yeah.
just don't have it with me.
No, I understand. I didn't know if there was like would that be 300,000? Would it be 500,000? I don't, up? Okay.
So
I-
our application request is usually over 400,000, probably closer to 5 now.
Uh-huh.
Um,
As far as who
As far
qualifies?
as, no, as far as our total costs that we
Okay.
can apply for. It doesn't mean we'll get it.
Uh-huh.
It's just, you have to put it in and then they tell you how much you get.
Gotcha. I guess, and the reason I'm asking is I'd be interesting to see, like, if we, as a district, said, hey, we're going to come up with a way so that we don't ask you to pay book fees. We're one of the few states in the country that does. I know people move from out of state and go, what? We have to pay money? So I guess my thought was, what would that look like for us?
So that looks like what your total cost to buy the textbooks is.
Right.
So if you adopt a textbook adoption at $1 million, it's going to be $1 million for that textbook adoption. It's your number of students. So if you, I mean, we know how much that costs when we adopt. That's how the book fees are set.
Yeah.
So it's not, the actual book fee calculation is 1-to-1, the cost of the book
Right.
divided by 5 years or 6 years, whatever that adoption plan is.
Right.
So we know how much that cost is at the time in which you adopt any curriculum. And it just depends on the curriculum.
But I think there's a couple things that we should remember. We, on purpose, increased book fees 3 years ago
Yeah, to cover the,
because of the one-to-one initiative. We now consider that a textbook. At the same time, we offset in district, and we, now that we don't charge families for the meals, their cost actually went down. So if we're looking at it from a cost of a family, their cost is still way lower.
yeah.
Because we're trying to look at the total. We're trying to look at the total thing, because we had a huge problem when we got into the textbooks originally about, we had this great initiative, this great plan in the beginning, but then we failed to figure out how to refund that in 3 or 4 years, how to fund the recycling of the laptops. So it was like, okay, let's spend, I think it was $2 million, I could be wrong, for when we did our first test on the laptops and stuff, but whatever it was, it doesn't
900
matter.
and something.
It was a pretty good sized number. I mean, I'm talking back 5 years ago now.
It was,
Yeah, or 6 years ago.
998.
Yeah, so it was it that long ago? Wow, I've been on the board too long.
We actually, we adopted back in the spring. If you remember, we adopted Chromebooks back in the spring. So it's been, this is the new year.
Second round.
So
Well,
this
but
is our new year.
I was talking about the very first time.
Yeah, so that's 5 years ago.
Yeah, so it was, we had this huge bill coming with no thought about how we were going to fund it. And then the laws with the state changed, and that allowed us to transfer some of that cost there to help us with our technology. So, but also correct me, if the family or the student fills out the forms and they can't financially afford it, then the student's not paying for the books anyway.
Correct. So, and that is one
So-
thing for the members of our public. I have to encourage you. It is called a meal application.
Right.
So it is a part of the food service program. However, the textbook application is the second page of that. It is absolutely vital to the district that everyone fill that out, whether you actually would qualify or not, because that also helps us retain the program in the food services department, in which we are providing our students with free breakfasts and lunch. Now, that textbook application has to be verified through a website at the state level. There are definitions that you have to meet economically, and it is an all or nothing from the textbook side. The meal side was a little different because we qualify as a whole district. We don't have to worry about that so much anymore. However, it is very important that everybody fill those out. And that is actually what determines how much we get in the secondary piece of the textbook reimbursement, and that is what is called the shortfall. So they know that 100% is not funded through that state program. And a portion of the difference is funded through the debt platform in the taxing funds. And it just helps a little bit. It doesn't
It
necessarily.
gives you some recovery.
It gives you some recovery. It is something that in a year in which tax collections are lean, we do not have to take, and we can put toward our debt payments. However, it does provide us the option to do that, and that money is transferred directly into the textbook fund to help offset that.
So I just wanted to point out there's a lot of, there's really a lot of factors that go into how we established these book fees.
Right.
At least from my perspective, there is. So I just don't want to lose sight of that as board members. You need to, I'm sure parents are glad that they don't have to spend $10 or $15 a week or whatever the total is now.
Karen, what does it cost a typical student for lunch and breakfast for the year?
0 now,
I
unless
know
you
that,
are
but
in my family and you
I
get all the
understand that.
extras.
But on a typical year, what would a family spend for a student?
So student breakfast, if you were to get a second lunch or a second breakfast is $1.25 and a second lunch is $2.50.
Not what I'm
So
asking. What
times
I'm
5
asking-
days.
So it's $3.70.
What I'm asking is a single
telling you.
breakfast and a single lunch.
That's what she's telling you. So a
Yeah.
single lunch is or a single
$3.75.
breakfast is $1.25. A single lunch is $2.50.
Well, she was saying a second and stuff.
So $4, you're 20
We
bucks a
spent
week.
over
Because right
$300
now we don't.
Because they don't.
That's what I was
Yeah.
getting at. You're actually,
And our kids,
$500.
you're actually in the positive to,
$4.50.
it was over 300.
by what you're paying in book fees by getting free lunches and breakfast.
And that's why I just wanted the public to know and us to remember that, because I don't, when you see book fees at $150 or $160, you think initially, wow, that's kind of high, but there's a reason for that, and it's not unthought. We didn't go into that without any thought, so.
But it still is a burden, and I think it's important we keep an eye on that as we grow closer to $200 a student. That's a big number, and with multiple kids, that's another bill due in the fall. That while yes, the lunch more than covers that, I think we need to be very cautious in increasing our fees.
But financially, if the family can't afford it, then they don't have to pay the book fees anyway.
As long as they fill out the
But
form
they
and get
also fill out the form.
approved.
There's a lot of working poor that don't get the assistance. That's fairly strong word.
That's why Karen was taking the 30-second radio spill there.
So,
I mean, it's important that we get that message out.
Right. The thing is, it's important that, and also I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not, if you can't write a check for $150 or $160, you can make installments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have payment plans in every single building.
Right.
You do have to request it. It is not something that they will just necessarily offer without knowing that you would like to do that. We don't approach people with that, but if you ask, it's there. So, and that we take the installments, and if you take care of it at the beginning of the year, we'll spread it out through the entire school year. So that's 10 payments.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot when you look at budgeting. So
Yeah. 15
that is
bucks a-
available.
Yeah.
Is
So-
that, go ahead.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, you're all right. Go ahead.
Is that textbook application part of the enrollment that
It is.
everyone fills out online?
It is, and it's
Okay.
actually a required part, though you would be surprised how many people just skip it. But it is something that it's a natural part. It just takes you straight to it before you leave enrollment.
All right. Anything else? We have a motion on the table. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
Board of Trustees, for item 4.06, I ask that, I'm sorry, for action item 4.05,
Five.
yes, I'm sorry. I ask that Mrs. Scalf return with a presentation regarding meal prices.
Yes, so good evening. We do not have to often do this. However, occasionally the Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Agriculture will restructure the way that they handle student or adult meal pricing in our food service departments. So that is why we come to you tonight with a change to the adult meal price. This is an optional bonus bonus that our staff have to participate in breakfast and lunch if they should like, and we just have to increase our meals for that to meet the proper requirements that the IDOE and USDA have put in place. So tonight, that recommendation we are keeping nearly as low as it can be at $4.75. Currently, the charge is $3.75, so it is a $1 change. And we will be communicating with staff upon their return for the school year. The other thing that is, there are two other things on this recommendation, and that is just a little bit of cleanup. So the a la carte pricing needs adjusted a bit. As we all know, when we go to the grocery store, the price of everything is going up when it comes to foodstuffs. And that is no different, even though we get very good pricing for the amount of product we buy, we still need to just very minimally increase those costs. You will note that most of the changes are 25 or 50 cents. We are trying to make that at the quarter, we round at the quarter for the sake of ease in making change out at the buildings. And so that is why you will see what you see. Also part of this, the My School Bucks program is a software program we use for online payments for our parents and our guardians that would like to make credit card payments for school lunch, for some student activities, and for book fees. And the fee to process that, we received notice just a couple weeks ago that that fee has increased to $2.75. We have no control over that fee. That is assessed by Heartland Payment Systems. What I will tell you is that really is not a terrible fee when you look at the cost of credit card processing. That is the other part of this recommendation, is that in the past, we have taken the position that we keep one fee for all credit card processing. We do accept credit cards at the corporation level for book fees and for donations and for a lot of various things that we get throughout the year. We would like to keep that fee similar to My School Bucks so that there is no difference in our buildings when they're communicating with families, guardians, people in the public. So it's my request tonight that we update our credit card payment processing fee to $2.75 from $2.50 in alignment with the My School Bucks fee that's coming, or that already is in place actually. So tonight it's my recommendation that we approve the recommended meal price, a la carte pricing, and fee increases as they have been presented.
I move that we approve all of the fees that we've been talking about.
Motion by Keith Morey,
Specifically the meal price.
second by Brad Walton.
About book fees.
Any questions or comments?
Just to clarify, so we have no choice in this. The Indiana Department of Education is mandating it.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Correct.
No, I
We can
you
do
know,
it.
I would love to offer teachers a less expensive option, personally.
I don't want to take the audit exception
I
on
know.
that. So
I know.
I would gladly
if
do
our
it
hands
too,
are
but
tied,
they're-
I would love
yeah.
to,
Yeah.
you know, do that for them.
Right.
Someone's got to pay tax. Yes, sir.
I forget, and you probably answered this question last year, Karen, but are they allowed, staff or student or parent, because this fee is based on transaction,
Correct.
are they allowed to do like a $100 deposit and work off of an account?
Yes, we
So-
do that. Actually, that's how we process 100% of our food service.
Okay.
Is even if a student brings cash through the register, they deposit it into their account so that the POS or the point of sale system can just automatically move everything over, and it's really neat and tidy that way from the accounting standpoint. So every student is set up with an account. Staff are set up as they deposit, so they're only as needed. Not everyone has an account if you've never used it, but if you want to, you can put $20 in, and then when it's gone, they'll tell you, you actually get, as a parent, you get low balance notifications through My School Bucks if you've ever used it. You actually get 2 or 3 before you run out, and then your food service staff actually will notify you as you go through the line as well. So they'll tell the kids, hey, let mom and dad know you're down to $1, or they'll let staff know you're down to $1. You can.
So
put
we
more
have
in.
the option that we can encourage larger deposits, and then at the end of the year,
And
Do
It
we
just
send
moves
checks
to the
back?
next year.
It rolls to the next year.
Yep.
So if I put money in
Unless your kid
in
graduates.
Molly's account,
Yeah.
if she
But-
doesn't use it, it goes to the next year, and it'll just continue until she graduates.
Free soft
you would-
tacos
I
with
mean,
your
they would be
diploma.
able to send a check out if your kid graduated.
We got a letter, I
Do
forget,
that,
and
yeah.
I don't think we ever responded, so.
Yeah, so
welcome.
thank you.
Thanks, sir.
We actually send letters, we are required by law to send notification, either email or letter out to students who have graduated, to offer them the ability to get that balance refunded, or they can donate it to a Students in Need account, and that's something that the board, you have to pass a policy on that. Now, it was new a few years ago, and we did that, that you have to have a place for if they don't respond, what happens at that point. And you can't just keep it in there forever. So we, yeah, sorry. So we do
Got the
notify
letter.
graduates, and we try to do that almost immediately following graduation, sometimes before graduation, and the response time is after. So we usually try to allow 2 to 3 weeks for parents to respond throughout the summer, and then we'll process those before the next school year
But
starts.
the key is we could help, they could help lower their transaction cost if they would do more of that.
Right, because it's a
$50,
flat rate
deposit.
fee, right. I know a lot of people that do that simply because then you don't have to worry about it for a while. But everybody gets to choose. That's the great thing about that option, is it's totally at your own decision, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Dr. Wright.
Board of Trustees, I ask that for action item 4.06, the Rhs Change Orders, Mrs. Scalf present material regarding that.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to go through this, and there's a lot tonight. So we have been busy this summer, if you didn't already know that. Some of you are in some facility meetings, and all of you get to see Mr. Slifer and Mr. Hamilton's updates. And you will see that we are fast and furious this summer. So with that, we have a number of change orders before you tonight on these projects. I will note that there are 6 listed in my memo. There are 8 documents that go with those 6. So a number of those documents actually total up together, but for the sake of needing to get the memo and making it as clear cut as possible for you and for our public, that is how that is broken down. So the first is in the counselor's area. This is actually a purchase order project. It was not high enough that we needed to bid, but there is a change order in the amount of $7,382. It is an addition to the current cost of the project, making the end cost $63,975. This is for flooring materials that once they got into that subfloor, they knew that it was going to require a little bit of extra work. So that's what that is. The next is the fire alarm upgrade, and you will see that there are 3 associated with the fire alarm. All 3 are with BCR Incorporated. That is also known as Wiesenhunt to those of us in the Richmond area. And the first is a deduct change order of $1,364. That's unit pricing changes on the duct detectors. It's too many Ds. There is an add change order of $946 for unit pricing change of pull stations and horn strobes. There's also an add change order of $2,618.50 for pricing unit pricing change on materials and labor of conduit, fittings, straps, boxes, covers, and THHN. There is the final cost of that project then changes to $275,200. The next is the classroom renovation project on the 2nd and 3rd floor at RHS. That is with Arcom Builders, And the first is an add change order of $43,641.69. That is for adjustment to flooring needs on the subfloor. Once they got in there, it required some extra materials and some changes to how that had to be finalized. And then the last of that is a change order adding $3,238 for adjustments in pricing to piping and conduit. So that end result cost on that project then is at $3,308,879.69. So tonight, it's my recommendation that the Board of School Trustees approves these change orders as they've been presented.
Thank you.
I move to approve 4.06, the RHS change orders as presented.
Motion by Aaron Stevens,
Second.
second by Jeff Schleifer. Any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Unit pricing changes for materials and labor, which constitutes 5 of these change orders. Is it because of us not responding quick enough on bid times that the prices had increased, or typically when a bid goes in, prices are locked?
I think that some of it is the number that they needed when they initially, like we had per unit costs in our bids that if they needed more or less, the difference was going to be a certain amount. And it has to do with that. That's why you'll see in the parentheses how many difference for that made. For most of those, I believe that is what the issue is. Mr. McCurdy is here. He can correct me if I'm wrong. But it's not, I don't think it's so much that all of the prices changed. It was maybe the number that they thought they needed might be 1 or 2 more, 4 less than what the plan had thought. Do I have that right? For the most part?
For the most part.
Okay.
For the most part. Well, it's odd to see, a unit price changed each.
Yeah.
We had those priced each, so, why would they, well, and I'm not reading the contract.
Right, so in the contract and the bid, they're specified out like that. So, and I do know that was at our request. And so, my understanding that if that would change, they would have to let us know that. It is a little different than we have done.
Yeah, I'm still a
some
little
other
confused
things.
if you want me to be truthful, because typically, once you approve a contract, unless there's a clause in that contract that allows you to escalate your prices for your materials, typically you're locked in at that price. So
I think it's the number.
okay.
I think it's not.
I'll trust you.
I don't know that
Unit
it's,
bidding is
yeah.
very common, and you may spec an expected number of units, and the actual field experience may differ.
But only if you would require more, though.
Well, or you get a deduct if you require less.
Right, but these are all ads.
Not all.
Not
Not
all.
all.
We
There's a
actually
deduct
shifted.
in there.
Is there a deduct?
Oh yeah.
We shifted, I think, that from one contract to another.
$1,364, Jeff.
Oh, I missed the deduct.
Yep.
Shocker.
Deduct change for $1,300, Joe. I see that one now. Okay, I trust you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Dr. Wright.
Board of Trustees, I ask for action item 4.07, the Wayne County Jail MOU, that Mrs. Scoff continue with her presentation.
We are happy to coordinate a partnership with the Wayne County Jail again for our adult education program. We are fortunate enough to have teachers able to go into our county jail and work with the inmates on completing high school coursework toward their equivalencies. Tonight, this memorandum of understanding is before you. There are no changes with the exception of the dates. It is my recommendation that you approve this MOU with the Wayne County Jail for the 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you. Happy to entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the MOU.
Motion by Keith Morey,
Second.
second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments?
How does this benefit us?
So.
I know that is a.
No, it is. It's a mutually beneficial partnership. Throughout the state, adult education funding is a grant supported, and it is a self-sufficient fund here at RCS. That program does a really great job of doing that. One thing that this program does is it not only provides our community with some growth, and we all would expect that it provides positive reinforcement to inmates at our law enforcement facilities who might then have the opportunity to utilize that knowledge in a different way later in their life. But it also provides data in which that program is seen as a benefit to our state. So if we have high participation, which we actually do have pretty good participation. I don't have the numbers here with me tonight, but I know that Mr. Hensley keeps close watch on that. That it provides additional solidity to the program and the importance that it has on the development of our community and our state as they look at how effective that program is. So it's an interesting partnership because the jail pays for the majority of this program. So it's self-funded. The grant program provides very little of this class because the jail and our sheriff department and our sheriffs have felt it's a very important part of what they do. So.
I understand the process because I quite often see some of the instructors who are there. When I ask the question, how does it benefit us? I'm less concerned about the state, but how it affects Richmond and Wayne County. I would love to see sometime down the road some of the tracking of how those people who have gone through the program there while incarcerated, how they've used that in a positive manner and how it has positively affected Richmond and Wayne County. I get concerned about the recidivism rate in regards to those who come and go and return and those who have gone through the program. And I'm very specific about wondering, how does that benefit us? Does it put that person on track to be a positive addition to our community as opposed to someone who wants back in the working portion of the community uses that in a positive manner?
I'm not sure we'll have that information, but I can definitely get you data on who completes the programs or the tracking of participants and what we can get.
One of the easier things would be is to determine and identify those individuals who have gone through that program and see if within a year or two afterwards, if they have been, reincarcerated.
I would not have access to those records.
It's possible.
But yes, so, and that's something the Sheriff's Department could probably provide us. So we can check into that.
I'm not downing that because I believe there's the need for it. I just want to see the overall effectiveness for Richmond and Wayne County.
So we can chat with the sheriff and get some information for you and put that in a future board update.
No rush.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Dr. Wright.
Board of Trustees, for action item 4.08, the Cope Environmental Center Agreement, I ask that Assistant Superintendent Jennifer O'Brien present items regarding that action item.
Yes, this is a renewal of an ongoing partnership that we've had for several years. As it stated, the agreement's a result of partnering with Cope Environmental Center to provide science curriculum supplements at the primary level by introducing hands-on environmental educational opportunities. The partnership has been a successful complement to the science curriculum, and we look forward to working with Cope again. Please note that there are no fee increases for the 21-22 school year. It does not include transportation. If a school chooses to go to COPE, they have the option. There are 4 programs. It's year-long. They can do a combination. They can go field trips to COPE. They can do live or virtual presentations and outreach programs where individuals from COPE will come and present in the classroom. So at this time, I ask the board to approve the program partnership agreement between COPE Environmental Center and Richmond Community Schools.
I'll
I
make the
move that we
motion.
accept this agreement with COPE.
Second.
Cole Stoltz makes the motion, Jeff Schleifer seconds. Any questions or comments?
Just had a question, Jennifer. Given the COVID for the last year, were we able to get pretty much substantial performance of the contractual obligation by the virtual?
Right, and
option?
that's why the language is in there for the virtual options as well.
So they were still able to deliver even
Yes.
in those
Yeah.
circumstances.
And we anticipate then this year that we'll probably take less advantage of the virtual options and go more toward
Field trip,
yeah.
so.
And we did actually have some classes that that still went to COPE in person and just followed the guidelines at the time.
Thank you. We'll just, any other questions or comments? Simply add, I know they have a wonderful RHS graduate as their summer intern.
Really?
But all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. That's right.
Board of Trustees for action item 4.09, the request for approval for alcohol service at the Richmond High School class of 1971 reunion. I ask that the action item be approved as presented.
Happy to entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Jeff Schleifer.
Second.
Second by Aaron Stevens. Any questions or comments?
The only question or comment that I have is, assuming that we have all the paperwork and liability and insurance, as long as that's all taken care of, I'm happy.
That we do.
Yeah, that was my question, was I noticed on one of the, it had said that Lulu's is doing it, but they didn't have their, I assumed that the permit number was not on there because Lulu's doesn't have it yet or whatever.
Right. And
Yeah.
we were waiting on one other document from the insurance company. We received that yesterday.
Okay, so it's all, everything's in order. I think it's pretty cool. We're like, what, two board meetings out from approving this, and already we've got somebody ready to take advantage of it, and they're doing all the steps that we asked for. So I think it's a neat opportunity. Makes me want to go to the 71 reunion.
Were you invited, Keith?
No, I was not.
Were you born, Keith?
I was not.
That's a no and a no. I was born. I wasn't a part of it, but I can get you, I'm sure I can get you an invitation.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
I'll get you an invitation.
On to policy review and update. You handling this or am
I believe this is your
We're
area.
all
I don't want
right.
to step on anyone's toes.
No, no.
In the future, if you like.
So we have two policies looking at second reading. I'd be interested in,
I would love to bundle and save if we could combine 5.01 and 5.02 into one approval.
blow more.
I would like to make that movement.
Is that progressive?
Motion by Keith Murray, second by Brad Walton, to combine item 5.01 and 5.02, policy 3120.06, selecting student, teacher, administrative interns, second reading, and policy 5320.01, purchasing using online reverse auctions, second reading. Any questions or comments on those policies? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item 5.03, policy 4500, student conduct, first reading.
I would go as far as combining 503 and 504 to pass to second reading.
All right, motion
I'll
by
second.
Lifer, second by Keith Moore to combine
Able to do the online.
item 5.03, policy 4500, student conduct, first reading, and item 5.04, policy 5423, use of credit card, first reading, into one motion to move on to second reading. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. On to our work session. I believe I'll go back to you, Dr. Wright.
Board of Trustees, I ask that for the work session, item 6.01, that again, Director of Elementary Education, Mrs. Don Sonsini, present to the board, highlighting her department.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back in front of you this evening. I will try to make this short. I'm sure many of my colleagues are probably starting their time on their watches to see, but I'm super passionate about the role that I have. Had you asked a year ago to me to do that, I would have been overwhelmed. I felt like I was drinking from a water hose, but I feel like having a year under my belt and being able really to bring focus and clarity to the work in the elementary world is a goal that I have for this upcoming school year. So today I plan to share with you just kind of elevating the essentials of the goals that I have for our elementary team and staff this year, as well as other responsibilities that are on my mind throughout the day and throughout the year. So these are the 4 essentials that I feel like we will increase student achievement with during the 21-22 school year. The first goal is implementing a guaranteed and viable curriculum. And those 2 words, guaranteed and viable, are extremely important as we went through the curriculum mapping process. And I made sure to make that very clear and provide explicit instruction to our teams. The guaranteed part just means that there's an equal opportunity for every student in our district, whether they attend Charles in kindergarten or whether they attend Fairview in kindergarten. The viable curriculum means that there is the necessary time. So that's really looking at the master schedule and even the teacher schedule within the day. So we call this guaranteed and viable curriculum our Tier 1 core instruction. That's what we provide to every student in every grade. That kind of led to the work with the curriculum maps. The other piece of that is the data-driven instruction. And so I do feel like this is an area that we can continue to grow in and transitioning from being reactionary to data that we receive to really being proactive and in the moment. And that comes with common formative assessments, us being able to observe kids and provide Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. We have seen an increase in our Tier 2 and Tier 3 kiddos that need additional services, and so that's why going back to that Tier 1 instruction is really important to ensure that it is the highest quality that we can possibly provide our students, so that if they don't respond to that Tier 1, then we can move into Tier 2 and Tier 3 services. The second goal that we have is increasing high quality early childhood experiences. And earlier, last school year, I presented the On My Way Pre-K program that we will be launching at Star and Vail this coming school year. But really that goal is just early intervention and opportunity for kids. And so that will be something that we continue to focus on next school year. The third area is utilizing grant funds to support improvement efforts. And so this is working with our Title I budget, our early intervention grant, and also school improvement grant money. So earlier you approved an action item for Smeckens, that was out of a Title I, but you've also approved NIET in the past, and that is out of school improvement grant money. So really working with building principals to determine needs and then supporting them with any instructional supplies that they might need for their teachers. And those funds are based on, for example, Title I is poverty. And so as the money, it's not as great as it has been in the past, it continues to be decreased, but we still find ways to provide the support that we have in the past. The fourth area is kind of a passion of mine, and it's just this sense of collective efficacy, and it's the belief that as a teacher, that I impact learning and that I can teach every student in my class. And so that starts at the teacher level, but it also expands to the building. And what I said during curriculum mapping, I really tried to plant the seed of it's not just in one building, but it's a collectively as a district, that we believe working together we can reach every single student regardless of the barriers, the factors that they have impacting them at home. It doesn't matter. We believe together with our coaches, our interventionists, our teachers, our paraprofessionals, everyone working together, that we can overcome and increase our student achievement scores. So again, prioritizing instructional excellence is a goal of mine, and I think a lot of that was planted when we started our curriculum mapping. So these are those 4 areas again, but I just tried to break them down a little bit more concretely so that you can understand and ask questions as we move through. Curriculum, we did have 2 weeks, 1 week dedicated to language arts, 1 week dedicated to math, where we had teams of teachers come in. We also had support from the Department of Education, where we looked at all of the standards that the state has given us. Sometimes we have found that teachers place the same amount of time on every standard. But what we know from looking at 3rd grade iRead and 3rd and 4th grade iLearn scores, or excuse me, iLearn test, is that there are certain standards that are higher priority. And so what we needed to do with curriculum mapping was really bring clarity to the standards that need to be covered in more depth than all standards. So instead of spending the same amount of time on every single Department of Ed standard, we needed to focus it on identifying 2 to 3 high priority standards. And what we did was we identified those by every 6 weeks in our cycle. So we identify the high priority standards. We don't leave out the other standards. Those are called supporting. So if you can imagine cutting up every single standard in language arts and putting them on a table in front of 4th grade teachers and saying, okay, how would you break these up into 6 groups? What are the high priority standards, and then what are the supporting standards? So we did create a Google Sheet that I'm super proud of. We have to figure out a way to print it because some teachers like the hard copy. So that we're still working on because it's quite in-depth, but it does highlight the learning targets, which is basically kid language for what those standards are. Because if I rattled off the long standard to a kid, they may not know exactly what their target is. And so just like you have your Google Maps, you need to know where your end goal is. We want our kids to know those learning targets. So that's something we will be focused on this year. They also include vocabulary, different assessment types questions. So how do I assess that standard? Because when you leave that open, the way that Mr. Stevens interprets that standard and assesses that standard could be different than the way that Mr. Morey does. So there's a lot of power in bringing teachers together in what we call deconstructing those standards to really identify what it is we're trying to teach kids. So that's the first area under curriculum. That ties into how do I know if they're learning it? It's not just a one-way street. I'm not just delivering the information and then hoping that Mr. Walton learns it. I have to somehow assess him. Well, what we've been doing in the past is assessing at the end of the 6 weeks. And so we have created common formative assessments. We had not been using them this past year because there was a lot of flexibility in what was allowed. And so we have now created an EdSite. EdSite's a platform online. It allows for technology enhanced questions. It also has question item banks, am I saying this wrong? Questions in the bank that you can pull from as examples of how to assess that standard. So we're really excited about EdSite. They've been created every 6 weeks, but my hope is that as teachers feel comfortable with that, then they can create their own within that 6-week period. So that's something that is new and that we'll be working with teachers on is the EdSite platform. Some did utilize it this year, but with everything else on the plate, we didn't require that. That will be where all common formative assessments will be for the upcoming school year. The other part I love about it is that it is coming from the district level. So the way we push those out to teachers is from our e-learning team. And so we will be able to look at data differently across the district, at the building level, at each grade level. So just lots of different ways we can analyze data. And then the third area is the guided math framework. So as you know, math scores are not great in the elementary, and we are coming up on math adoption. So we'll be pulling together a team of teachers to look at the different options this school year. So I'm excited to see where we go with that. But a focus on number sense, routines, stations, and small group instruction is part of that math guided framework that we did with curriculum mapping. So within 5 days, if you ask anyone, we accomplished quite a bit. Pulling together that guided math framework, I know was something that Mr. Thomas had on his to-do list, I think, for a while now, and I said, we're getting it done. We're there. We have teachers, we can get input, so super excited about that. It could be a little overwhelming to a teacher that sees the math framework and sees the 8 different components, but what I've said to principals is, let's take a look at that. What are you already doing? Are you already doing small group in math? You already do it in reading. It's called guided reading. Now, what does that look like in the math model? So what I've asked them to do is look at those 8 different components, and what's one that's like, I consider a low-hanging fruit that you already have some experience on in the building, and let's knock that one out. Don't expect that everyone have all 8 components by the first 6 weeks of school. So that's kind of the role there, or the responsibilities and things that I'm really focused on in curriculum. In the area of preschool, it really is a continuation of curriculum. Mrs. O'Brien, when I came in, had just purchased the FPC curriculum for preschool. So that is super exciting because that aligns to what K through 4 is doing. And I was excited to visit classrooms and see kids having the books out and looking at concepts about print. So being able to turn, the pages, left to right directionality, and those were just our littles, and they were at preschool at Stars. So again, those concepts of print allow kids then in kindergarten to be looking at letters and being able to start sounding out words. So that progression is really important. And we're looking to expand. We piloted a program in math at Star and Vale with some grant money. So we're hoping to extend the math curriculum in preschool this coming school year. The second area under preschool is the Esgi Assessment. This is something that's currently used in kindergarten and first grade to check skills. But what we found, and when I came in, what I was told is that preschool students coming from outside of Richmond Community Schools were better prepared for kindergarten than kids that were attending Richmond Community Schools. We didn't have hard data on that, but I was told that by a few different people, and I thought, how can that be? When we have control and an opportunity to influence. And so the Esgi assessment, our preschool teachers, instructors, did a really nice job of looking at the foundations. So the learning foundations are basically the equivalent of standards. That's what they call them at the early levels. But we looked at how could we assess those. So we built, preschool instructors built those assessments in Esgi. So we'll be doing that 3 times a year, and we'll be able to look at kiddos that come into us in preschool in the fall and in the spring and the growth that they've had. And also to provide reports. Another benefit of that is that preschool kids that move into kindergarten and first already are familiar, parents are familiar with those reports. So it's a continuation of the same platform. And then the third one, which brings a little bit of anxiety just because it's new, is On My Way Pre-K. We're close to getting ready to launch this, and we're working on student enrollment, making sure those that were pre-qualified are now in the registered category. Those that haven't applied have started that. So again, numbers are fluctuating. We're in constant communication with our On My Way Pre-K provider. So I'll be excited to share an update with you in the future regarding numbers at those buildings. But the 2 barriers that are in my mind in preschool are always transportation and full day. Those are the 2 things that I think we potentially lose kiddos for, is because they, parents need that full day option. So we'll see how On My Way Pre-K goes to look at possibly expanding for the following school year. The third area that I spend a lot of my time on, I probably had a lot of anxiety, I think I told Mrs. O'Brien coming in, was Title I. And I do feel like I've learned a lot. There's still a lot more to learn, but I'm getting there. So Title I is a large beast. And basically we have school-wide programs at all 6 of our elementaries, both intermediate buildings. I also work with Wernley, which is our neglected facility, in our non-public schools. So that would be Seton Elementary, Seton Junior High, and then Community Christian. And so those are the schools that we, and Richmond Friends School. Community Christian declines funding, but the other 3 we work in communication with regularly to roster, to know how many students, to then determine the equitable share for each of those non-public schools. But that is the budget. There are amendments that come along the way. And I'm a person who likes to be done with the budget, but as I've learned with Title I, another allocation may come and you have to re-amend, and it's a good thing, but it's, one more thing that adds to the plate. So within that, purchasing, anytime our schools or the non-publics purchase something, that goes through our office, and we're reviewing to make sure it's in alignment with what we can spend those funds on. And then there are requirements. There are annual Title I meetings that we have to have. There are school events. Staffing documentation, which is basically full-time employees, those that are split funded, lots of fun paperwork that we have to make sure is accurate in the event that we are audited. And lastly, with Title I is just the feedback. So how are we getting feedback from families to really evaluate the work that we're doing with students? The school improvement grant is only for identified schools. So both Fairview and Dennis qualify because of their achievement and because they're Title I. So they fall within the lowest 5% of Title I schools. And so that money is additional funding. And when I'm thinking through that and working with those two principles, I'm thinking about financial and programmatic sustainability. So how do we start something, bring in an external vendor, such as an IET or a Smeckens, to kind of provide that assessment of how our school is doing, and then work with the team to bring them where they need to be. So that's something that the school improvement grant covers. It also covers staff stipends. So Fairview is having NIET come in to do a retreat with their teachers. This is optional, but there are staff stipends that are built in the school improvement grant that aren't in the Title I grant that would allow them to do that. So that also is like a class reduction teacher. The third grant that I oversee is the early intervention grant, and really that is a very small grant, but it basically allows us to use that ESGI platform, and then Orton Gillingham OG, any supplies and licenses for teachers to access that platform during the school year. So the fourth area that I wanted to cover is, again, this idea of collective efficacy. And so I'm always thinking about a sense of belonging, and are we validating individual strengths of our staff? You know, John Maxwell says you can either be a plus or a minus. So I think how is someone value added to our organization within the school, as a district? How do we tap into those teacher leaders? How can they provide support not only in their building but across the district? So further developing teacher leaders, I think that we do a nice job of letting our instructional coaches lead, but I think we have a lot of teachers out there with expertise that I'd love to be able to tap into more, and to co-present things in PD, just to kind of continue to see ourselves as a professional learning community, which is the second term I use. And that's just really the idea of we're focused on learning and results. When we have grade level team meetings, when we have vertical articulation meetings, meaning like second and third grade teachers talking together, are we reflective about what's working and what's not? And part of that just means we have to be vulnerable, and I have to be able to say to Mrs. Brunton, hey, I can't get these kids to learn the standard, but your kids rocked it. Like, how did you do that? You know, share with me the strategy. And that takes a lot of us armoring down and really saying, we're all in this for kids, and what can we do to make the experience stronger? So that's the PLC piece. And the last one is pride. I think you know this about me if you don't, but I'm a high energy person. I'm very competitive in a good way, but I want to make sure that everyone that I influence sees that that energy does make a difference, and that there's a good competition, and that we have to market and brand the work that we do. And so if you don't follow me on Twitter, you probably shouldn't, because I'll probably blow up your phone. But I try to highlight a lot of the work that we're doing, because every opportunity, there are a lot of people that can cast negative energy our way because of something they don't agree with, that they may not understand. And so I try to complement that by praising when due to the people that are making it happen in the classrooms, and our principals. You're probably wondering, this is the last slide. So those are my 4 essentials that I really am focused on, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to kind of bring that clarity, because this is something that I need to do. And as a principal, I know that former principal, I needed that clarity. I needed to know where we were going. I wanted to make sure we were aligned with the board or the district. And so this just kind of jump-started that for me. These are just other responsibilities. I'm not going to go through each one, but I do serve as the contact for DCS in terms of notifications that come through, transportation requests, professional development. I try to have a handle on what's happening in the buildings, and also we provide that district-wide PLC, which is a professional learning community. It just means once a month, every second grade teacher across the district is in a meeting together talking about teaching and learning. We started it last year. It wasn't a practice that they were used to. They started with COVID just because they needed to plan. but I really have high hopes that it's going to be kind of pull the pieces together for that district pride and collective efficacy that, you know, if we see scores in a certain building that are higher than other, maybe that's another way for us to learn from each other. The school improvement area, again, just being in the know of each building principal and what they're thinking in terms of systematic change, what goals they have, what strategies, what resources do they need me to think about in budgeting for Title I, for school improvement. I did want to highlight the role within coaches and interventionists. So in the past, the coaches met once a week, and I attended a lot, if not all, those meetings this past school year. And there's a lot of focus on how they go back into the building. So, you know, it's hard because in a district you have to have some consistency, but you also have to have autonomy to let each building do their thing. This year, we started adding in interventionists. And so again, that idea of teacher leadership outside of just coaches and bringing a team of people together, interventionists play such a critical role in that tier 2 and tier 3 based on the number of kids we have. So Kristen Ross, if you know her, she is an interventionist at STAR. And we participated in an optional book study with the DOE this fall, but one of the follow-up books was called Taking Action, a handbook for RTI at work. And Kristen was like, hey, we got to get this book if you have any money, you know. And so I got it, she read it, and she's like, you need to get it, like, we need to talk about this. And so the STAR team of Melissa Jordan, instructional coach, Mallory Hill, Kristen Ross, and myself are reading this because this is something we've purchased for all of our instructional coaches, principals, and interventionists to really guide the work. It's a little lengthy, but it's really a handbook, so there's a lot of things that we can reference. But we're excited about that, and I think what excites me the most is that it came from one of our teachers, our interventionist, saying, hey, this is good work, let's do something with this. And I think we all need to be inspired. I mean, we may have it all here, but I think it just helps when you look outside to gather more resources to ensure that we're all doing everything we can for our kids. The empowering principals piece, I was trying to think of different examples. The day-to-day, it's probably like Mrs. O'Brien with all my questions. You never know what question's going to be asked, but I think that, you know, just being that go-to person is important for some of our principals. Some rely more on me than others. And so one of the goals that I have is, you know, how do I differentiate my support for a more experienced principal versus a first-year principal? So that's something, just continuing to deepen that instructional leadership. And then corporation testing coordinator is probably my least favorite, but it's all right. So that's something, just weekly updates that I send to our school testing coordinators, test security, annual trainings, and then lastly, community partnerships. So if you know me, I'm not hesitant to go out and try to connect with someone and provide an opportunity for our kids and our staff. And so those are some of the organizations that I've been pretty heavily involved with in the last few years.
Very nice.
I just want to tell you that in the, what?
Wait, stop.
And
6:43.
time.
What time did I start, Mr. Mops?
6:41.
Sweet, 2 minutes. Okay.
6:41.
I just wanted to tell you, in the year that you've been here, I feel like you're killing it. You're doing a great job. I have heard from multiple principals that they just have your energy is visible and palpable. I stopped out at I think you guys were doing math stuff, and you had all that stuff laid out, and they were all working. They were just getting after it, and you can tell they're energized and they're feeling empowered. I've heard from principals that, hey, you know, I thought I was doing this, and then now that Dawn's here, like, oh my gosh, I have all these other things I can work on, and they feel really supported and helped, and I think you're doing a great job. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, I have to credit Mrs. O'Brien. She's a great mentor. She's very quiet and she's humble, and you know, never needs that kudos to her, but she provides a lot of support and just, I mean, she really trusts me. So thank you. I know I've made some mistakes along the way, but she's always there to say, it's okay, we can figure this out, we'll work through it, and always approachable. And that makes a difference. I've worked for quite a few superintendents, and some haven't been that approachable.
This is just super helpful just to see it all laid out. So great job on this. In fact, I would love to have a copy of this.
Sure.
I was furiously writing notes.
Yeah.
like,
I was
just-
tweaking up until the last few minutes.
No,
Alex told me he needed it, so but I'd be happy to send it to you.
It's very informative to get like the big picture and how it, right. So
Right. Well, and if you have any questions, I mean, feel free. I try to include things in my board update, but if there are other things that you're unsure of, don't hesitate to ask.
Well, and I'll just add, thank you. I know that in our exec board, this is kind of a new idea for this year. We want to go through our people. We have a new superintendent, and I know we hit you quick and with not much notice, and this is the result. And I mean, it's amazing. I hated to put you on the spot like that, but obviously
It's good. It's a good pressure.
Feel bad for
Obviously,
the
you
other
delivered.
folks. I mean, that's a.
I
bar's
don't
high.
know.
The bar's
That's what I
set.
said. I don't know where. I don't know, but we'll see where it goes. So.
3 slides. I mean, that's a.
And the time. I mean, Stacy thought I was going to have 2 hours, so.
Well, Mr. Bob,
But thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for being part of our corporation.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming tonight.
If I can interject just before Mr. Sansini steps away, as you mentioned, Mr. Weber, and as Mrs. Sansini stated, and as we all can see, and as you all have seen for more than a year now, Mrs. Sansini definitely embodies what it is that as we move forward here in Richmond Community Schools, we are looking to have be the standard of measure, as Mr. Morey referenced. But of the wonderful presentation and reference to many of the items found in the slides, the data-driven instruction, the prioritizing instructional best practices, the intentionality with the with regard to our approach to instruction, and also, as Mrs. Sansini referenced, making sure that we provide supports for our faculty, staff, students, and stakeholders along the way, so that they understand that education and, most importantly, the process of learning at times gets a little messy. But as I've come to understand, the road to success is always under construction. And with Mrs. Sansini's aptitude and selfless service toward the profession, along with many of our other cabinet members, I think we definitely are on the right road for success. And when we hit some bumps, I think we have enough shock absorption. And I can't really speak to auto mechanics. I'm not Walton, but nevertheless, I think we have not only at the elementary level, but also in other areas of our cabinet, all the right people in all the right places. So I'm excited. And so thank you, Mrs. Sansini, for stepping up to the plate and, driving home a home run.
Thank you.
thanks.
Yeah, that was more than very impressive. Moving on to item 7, board reports and old business. All right. Moving on to item 8, preview of upcoming meeting and events.
Board of Trustees, I would simply like to remind everyone that the next board meeting is July 28th of this month. During that meeting, we will have yet another cabinet member presenting their particular highlighting and presenting the many facets found within their respective department, as we will continue to do throughout the course of this upcoming school season. I also would like to encourage everyone to get out and support our Richmond High School football team. They will be taking part in the exhibition contest on Saturday with a multitude of squads coming in for the annual summer workouts and whatnot. And then we also have this upcoming Friday our RHS football youth camp. And so to get out and see the young Red Devils, I look to go out and speak and talk and see if one of those young helmets will fit on my head. I'm not sure, but at least I'm going to try.
Is the band rehearsing now?
That's a great question. I'm not sure.
Had a tent set up
They were
earlier.
yesterday.
They have been all week.
They've been
All
there.
day.
First, I believe, is the
All summer.
Did I see that?
Remind everyone to support the band. I mean, they get a head start even before the football team does.
Yes, they do.
And they're out in sweltering heat when they do practice and put as much energy into their skills as any of the athletic programs. So
Absolutely. And Mr. Stevens, if I can interject and add to as a former varsity boys basketball coach in this great Hoosier state where round ball is at times king. Our band directors were really the only athletic program that was in the schoolhouse more than our basketball program. Year-round, the commitment, the sacrifice made by not only the students, but the band directors, the educators who were involved, the parents. I mean, it's a true community and family commitment, as well as when you look at orchestra and choir and some of the other performing arts. Just remarkable things that youngsters are doing and our educators are doing. And so, yes, as you mentioned, the band, no air conditioning out there for them, but just a whole lot of heart and love for the action. Yep.
All right. Moving on to adjournment and bell ringer. Dr. Wright.
For tonight's bell ringer item, I have a few. First, we definitely, as a school corporation, would love to. We'd like to thank the summer student hidden helpers and those who have been hired on to support our facilities and maintenance crews around the district. For students in today's era to commit to hard work, dedication, sacrifice one summer to come in and get dirty, per se. It's a rarity. Hopefully, over the course of time, we'll make it a commonplace, but our summer workers did a tremendous job these last several weeks, assisting, pitching in, carrying, lifting, and supporting one another as they were turning around classrooms and schools and fields, and anything asked of them, they were there ready to commit, and so that was great. The second bell ringer highlight I'd like to reference is the Wayne County 4-H participants. We had several Richmond Community School students who fared quite well with some of the state fair competitions, and we had a few grand champion ribbon winners from Richmond Community Schools, and so congratulations to them. I also would like to highlight the fact that we've had many faculty, staff in buildings, building level principals in buildings getting prepared for the 2021-2022 school season. They come in during the times in which the lights are not on, well, safety lights, but nevertheless, they come in and commit and put in so many countless hours to make sure that they are in a position to place students in positions to be successful, and so we'd like to thank them for their time. And then resiliency training. We had resiliency training these past 2 days. Tomorrow concludes the resiliency training, which we had roughly 20 plus educators from around the district that have committed and sacrificed their summer, even more of their summer, to come in and be trained on resiliency. And as I have stated, that is definitely one of the areas that we will continue to highlight and focus, and it will become a center point of what it is that we do here in RCS. Exercising resiliency is very, very important, as we all know, and teaching our youngsters how to do just that is amazing. And finally, this being my first official school board meeting, and as it is coming to a close, I simply would just like to thank the City of Richmond, our county here in Wayne, you all as a board of trustees, our cabinet, Mrs. O'Brien, as it was referenced, just a true gem and superstar of what she does and has done and will continue to do for us. Our building level administrators, faculty and staffs who took the time during the month of May to meet with me. I got a chance to get around and meet with the majority of faculty and staff, and the principals took time out of their day, and just amazing the things that we have going on here. And as superintendent and as a hometown kid, I am just overjoyed with the idea of serving those who come from the same water system that I once came from. And Glen Miller Park still has the free spring water for those that may have forgotten. But no, just overall amazing transition. It's been smooth, and as I've mentioned and as I'll continue to reference, my goal is to model humility, selfless service, and as I said, resiliency. It's the basic values that are free, but oftentimes hard to come by. And so if we can instill those within all that we do, I think we're going to be on the right track. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anything else for the good?
Did you not get a chance to go to Mr. Pyle yet?
No, he did.
I indeed
Just
had.
chair back and we'll just take a picture.
Is that what it is? Well, with the size of my head, they had to get
They got a
little
bigger
extra,
frame?
Yes, a larger frame to
We're putting the
fit.
seal down there. And putting the
But yes, it is coming. My mother would tell you the first time when I was a senior, I tried to avoid Mr. Powell and Powell Photography as well. But even this second time around, my mother told me I finally had to go down and get that picture taken. She and Mrs. Claypool, and everyone knows you do not disappoint Mrs. Claypool. Yes.
We can use your senior picture if you prefer.
Yeah. We use Aaron.
Good. Yeah.
No comment.
That's okay.
No comment.
Got his 8th grade picture with the football helmet, so.
All right, being adjourned.